Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to try to get some insight on how students can get to college through the military and ROTC. My guest today is Admiral Rob Wray. He's the CEO of the Blue Star Veterans Network, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Anthony.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
So I usually start out my guests where they went to college. So where did you go?
I went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland.
Oh.
My parents had 7 kids, and they said, "You're all going to college, and we're not paying for any of you." So it was an interesting method, but it worked. The 3 boys all went to military schools, and my sisters all waitressed their way through college, which is harder to do now than it used to be.
Absolutely, sure. So now, after college, where did that take you? What's the path that it took you to where you are today?
I was a mechanical engineer at the Naval Academy, and I went on to surface ships, and I was a nuclear engineer on surface ships for 7 years.
Wow.
And then I went into the reserves. I spent 20 years in the reserves doing the weekend and summer kind of duty, and was a businessman during the rest of the time. And then after getting mobilized for Baghdad, I got promoted to Admiral, and the Navy put me back on active duty. So I just finished the last 6 years back on active duty as an Admiral, and just retired or left the Navy a second time, and now I'm in a business career again. So it's been a kind of a strange career, military-wise.
Absolutely. So now, to get into what high school students do for getting into college through the military, what's the process that a high school student has to go through to go to college under ROTC or any military school that's out there?
There's 4 ways to have the military help you go through college. Okay. One way is you can serve in the military and then use the GI Bill to go through college after your military. The second way is you can be in the military as an enlisted sailor or soldier and then request that the Navy or the Army or the Air Force put you through school. And they have a variety of programs for serving soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines to send them through school. These are the 2 smaller ways. The 2 main ways that the military sends people to college is through ROTC, the Reserve Officer Training Corps, and through the academies, the Air Force Academy and the Naval Academy and West Point.
Okay. So now, what does a student need to do at the high school level to go to these type of avenues?
The first thing and the most important is plan early. Because, for instance, the academies are all looking for people. They want you to have a couple of years of foreign language. They want you to have 4 years of English. They want you to have 4 years of math. They want you to have chemistry and physics. So they want strong science backgrounds. So you can't sort of decide when you're a senior that you want to go to an academy because you may not have completed the academics.
I got
right?
you. Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing after planning early is go to the websites of any of the academies, and they'll tell you the things that you have to do. They'll tell you the programs that they want you to be in, the tests that they want you to take, and the application process for service academies can begin as early as April of your junior year, which is earlier than you would typically be applying to go to a regular college.
Okay.
And so you can apply from as early as April of your junior year all the way through January of your senior year to go to a service academy. And the process is a little bit more rigorous and detailed. So like I said, start early, go to the website, get the information.
Yeah. Now, does a student have to have any athletic background, or his or her GPA have to be pretty good to go to any of these?
Well, I apologize for speaking with my fingers, but I'm unable to talk otherwise, okay? The academies, all the academies, and the ROTC programs are looking for 3 things in any high school candidate. Number 1 is academic excellence. There's no standard GPA that you have to have, but all of the academies and the ROTC programs are looking for students to be in the upper end of their high school class, typically in the top 20%.
Wow.
So number 1 is academic excellence and taking those rigorous math and science courses that I talked about before. Number 2 is athletic capability. If you aren't athletically capable and medically capable, then the academies aren't going to want to choose you. So not only do you have to complete physical tests and push-ups and sit-ups and runs and basketball throws and things like that, but generally they're looking for someone who is on an athletic team or has been on an athletic team. Something like 90% of last year's Naval Academy class had varsity athletics in their background. Wow. So, and there's reasons for that. They're looking for team players, but they're looking for people that are in shape, because if you're going to say go off in the Marines and you can't do 3 push-ups, then the Marines aren't going to want you.
Sure.
And so after academic excellence is athletic capability. And then the third major thing that the academies and ROTC are looking for is a well-rounded person with extracurricular activities, particularly leadership. Oh. Something like 75% of last year's class was in student government, or edited their newspaper, or was the captain of a team, or was the president of a club. So in general, academics, athletics, and extracurricular leadership are sort of the initial steps, the first cut, as it were, right, with the academies and with ROTC trying to decide whether or not they want to give you their education, which is worth a lot of money.
So now, do parents go to, a lot of the high schools do career nights or college nights. Do the parents go up to some of these recruiters that are there and say, my son or daughter is very interested in going to school for the Army or Navy, Air Force, Marines, so on, and then they start the process right? They can start the process right there, or is it just through the website?
I would say the website is the first place to start, because it details all of the information that's required. Okay. The academies and ROTC do send people out to career fairs, but they don't get to all career fairs, obviously, and because unlike some schools, the academies and ROTCs are trying to deal with a national audience, they just can't get to all of them. Okay. So the best thing to do is go to the website and find the application process. In general, there's an application process, and it's not unlike other college applications. You have to write essays, you have to submit references, you have to get letters from teachers, you have to submit transcripts. Right. In addition to other schools, though, or you also have to do a physical fitness test. So a coach at your school will make you do push-ups and sit-ups and run a mile and throw a basketball, and they'll submit that stuff to the academy. Mm-hmm. And finally, there's a Department of Defense medical review in which they'll send you to a Department of Defense medical facility, and they'll poke you and prod you and make sure that you're physically capable of going to the academy. Okay. So think college application plus physical fitness test plus medical exam, and that's kind of the application process. Now, last year at the Naval Academy, something like 17,000 people either started or finished that application process, and they only accepted about 1,200. So do the math, it's a very, very small number of people actually get accepted. And the other academies are similar to that. So the process is a little bit more rigorous, and so it takes an earlier amount, or it takes an earlier effort. Now that's step one, is application. Yeah. Okay, there's 2 more steps if you're ready.
Sure.
For the academies, for ROTC, once you do that application, the ROTC programs for all of the services will then pick the best candidates out of that, and they'll offer ROTC scholarships. Ah. So I'm the Army, and you've just filled in your application. I say, great, we really like you. Here's your Army ROTC scholarship. You then have to go and get accepted at a school, which is separate from the ROTC scholarship.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So then you have to go get accepted to a school that has an Army ROTC program. And if you're lucky, the school that I'm giving you the scholarship to and the school that you get accepted to are the same school. So there's a considerable amount of work there. 2 of my sons went through the ROTC program, and we had to do this jiggling thing where we had to line up a ROTC award, as it were, with a school's acceptance and then put them together. Wow. So that's the ROTC program. It has its own issues, its own administrative complexities.
Sure.
For an academy, you do that whole application process, then you have to get a nomination. So with the academies, it's application, nomination, appointment. Okay. What's a nomination? A nomination is a kind of a letter from a congressman or a senator, or in some cases from the president or the vice president, that says, I like Anthony and I want him to go to the Naval Academy, okay? You still have to be qualified in all those other ways, but you have to have that checkoff from congressman, senator, vice president, or president. And Congress set it up that way because they wanted to make sure that every state in the union, every congressional district got their kids to go to the academies. And so each congressman and each senator gets a certain number of nominations. Now, so you're a congressman from, central New Jersey, and there's 25 kids that want to go to the Air Force Academy.
Right.
You and your staff will go through all those applications, and you'll pick the young people that you think are most qualified to go to the Air Force Academy. You don't give nominations to all 25 of them. You might give nominations to 5. Or you might say, here, Air Force Academy, here's the 25 applications from my district, and I rank them this way. Wow. Or you might pick one of the 25 and say, I really want it to go to John Smith, and everybody else is an alternate. It's up to you, the congressman, as to how you give out your nominations. Every congressman and every senator is different. So if you're a parent out there or a kid that wants to go to an academy, you fill in the application process, then you talk to your congressman or your senator and you say, when are you doing interviews? How do you determine who gets your nominations? Because if you don't have a nomination, you aren't considered for acceptance at the Naval Academy.
Wow.
So last year, about 17,000 applicants, this is just the Naval Academy where I went, so these are the reasonably accurate numbers. 17,000 applicants, about 3,000 fully qualified, which meant that they had met all the medical requirements and the academic requirements and the physical requirements, and they had a nomination in their hand.
Wow, okay.
And about 1,200 or 1,500 were offered appointments. And an appointment is a letter from the Naval Academy that says you're fully qualified, you have a nomination, we want you to come. It's the equivalent of an acceptance letter. And then about 1,200 actually showed up and went to school there. So if you're in ROTC, you do the application and then you apply to a school and you try to match up schools and scholarship awards. If you're academy, application, nomination, appointment, you got to go through that process. So it's a little bit, having had kids that did ROTC and kids that did regular college, it's doable, it's just a little bit more work.
So basically it's as difficult as to get into a regular college as just a regular student as it is to get into the ROTC or just the military academy of any sort.
Yes, it's a lot of work, and but people do it every year, and you just go to the website, read the rules. All of the academies, not so much ROTC, but all of the academies have officers that live out in the country that serve as advisors and counselors. So in the Navy, they're called blue and gold officers because the Navy's colors are blue and gold. So if you live in Princeton, New Jersey, there's a Navy Academy blue and gold officer who's probably a retired naval officer who lives around here, and his or her job is to be the advisor and the counselor to young people who live in the Princeton area who want to go to the Naval Academy. And they have the same thing for Army and Air Force. For ROTC, they don't have that program, but then you go to the local recruiter, and the local recruiters will set you up with someone who can walk you through the ROTC process. So there is assistance, and any good high school with a good high school counseling section will understand how to do this, because you won't be the first kid at your school that ever went ROTC or academy.
Oh, good. Well, Admiral, tell me a little bit about the company that you've started, the network. So it's Blue Star Veterans Network. And so what does the Blue Star Veterans Network do?
Blue Star Veterans Network helps older veterans and their families, their spouses and their widows, to age gracefully at home and to keep them free and independent. And what does that mean? If you talk to your average 85-year-old veteran or spouse of a veteran, and my parents are in their 80s, and my wife's parents are in their 80s, and my aunts and uncles are in their 80s, and they're all either veterans or spouses of veterans. What they want is they want to be healthy, and they want to be safe, and they want to live at home and they want to be free and independent. They don't want to have to move in with kids. They don't want to have to move into a nursing home. They don't want someone to have to take care of them. So the Blue Star Veterans Network is about giving them technologies to help them do that. And your average 85-year-old isn't as tech savvy as we would like,
sure.
or probably as they would like. So we provide them the simple technologies that allow them to be safe and to be healthy and to be connected at home without having to move in with family.
And some of the technologies is like this watch that you showed me?
Okay, so this is an example of one of our many technologies.
Okay.
You've heard of a help I've fallen and I can't get up button, right?
Sure.
Okay, so this watch is an example of that. See, men don't normally like to wear a plastic button around their neck because it looks kind of dorky and it makes them feel like an invalid.
Sure.
Okay? But men will wear a watch like that. I wear a watch like that, and you can't even tell that it's a special watch. But if you press that button, then it will call our monitoring station, and we have people standing by 24/7, and a veteran will answer the phone and say, "Hey, Mr. Smith, how you doing? We see that you pressed your button. Can I give you a hand?" Oh. So my aunt in Princeton, New Jersey, 82 years old, she was going into her garage to put away grocery bags the other day and slipped and fell, and her cell phone was in her purse in the kitchen. And it took her over an hour, because she broke a bone, it took her over an hour to get to her cell phone. Had she been wearing a watch like this or anything like those kind of things, she would have been able to press the button and help would have been there in minutes, either a neighbor or a family member or 911. So the watch is just one of many, many things. Here's another example. Okay. My wife's father, Bill Poole, 90 years old, World War II veteran, okay? Issues with blood pressure. And so like 90% of people over the age of 75 have some kind of chronic condition like diabetes, hypertension, COPD, things, obesity, things that need chronic conditions that require monitoring. So we can give him a blood pressure cuff that looks sort of like a big donut. And when he's watching the evening news in his easy chair every night at 6:30, he can slide that thing on his forearm, press the button, and it'll tell him his blood pressure, which is no big deal, but it will send the information through a gateway to the internet. And so my wife and I, 100 miles away, can get a text alert on our smartphone that he took his blood pressure and it's within spec, or it's too high, or it's too low. And the web collects that blood pressure every day during the nightly news. And then when he goes to see his doc at the end of the month, we can just email a graph of his daily blood pressure to the doctor, who can then do a better job of administering blood pressure medicines. Again, very, very simple technology from a technological point of view, but it helps to manage chronic conditions, and it keeps him from accidentally going too high in blood pressure and ending up in the emergency room, or going too low and ending up in the emergency room. Same thing with diabetes and pulmonary disease and obesity, all those kind of things. If you keep an eye on them, then it's easier to avoid problems.
Now, how long ago did you start this network?
We've been working on it for a year, because I just got out of the Navy a year ago, and it launches right now, the 1st of November in 2014. So we're just launching this month. We'll have a Veterans Day kickoff, and so it's brand new. At least our venture is. Oh, great! The technology isn't, but
so now, if people want to go to the website, will it be up now, or will it be up on November 1st?
Oh, the website is up, okay. And the easiest way is to just Google Blue Star Veterans, and you'll get to our website. Our official site is bluestarvets.us. Okay. And then that has information on me and my contact info. It has information on products. The membership in the Blue Star Network is absolutely free. It gives you lots of discounts to veterans and to their families, lots of other benefits, newsletters of things that seniors and senior veterans care about. And so there's tremendous value, and we would love folks just to join the network. There's peer-to-peer interface where people can find other vets or other families with like interests. All that's free, so you don't have to buy anything. Just join the network, and it's a good deal for seniors and their family.
And then they can get all the different types of technology, such as this watch.
Sure. All on a service basis. We don't actually sell equipment. In other words, we say if you would like to have blood pressure monitoring and with the software and the equipment and all that other jazz, that's $29 a month. And in the grand scheme of things, that will pay for itself. If you can avoid one emergency room visit every 10 years, you know, you're doing well. So it's all on a service model, and there's no long-term contracts. If people don't like it after a month, just send it back and we'll say thank you very much and stay a free member of the network.
Wow. Now, a lot of people on the network usually have gone to college, I'm assuming, some of them. Most people, when they go into the military, do most people have a college education, or a lot of them don't?
In the old days, and so if you're talking about 85-year-old vets, many of them were going into the military in the 1940s and the 1950s. In the old days, a very rough rule of thumb was about one officer for every 6 to 10 enlisted. And generally, officers had college degrees and enlisted did not.
Okay.
So that's the old school. If you look at the military nowadays, we still have about the same ratios of officers to enlisted, but many enlisted sailors and soldiers and airmen and Marines have college degrees either when they enlist or shortly after they enlist, they go to college. And so I had petty officers working for me in the Navy that had master's degrees.
Wow.
So the rate of education of our all-volunteer force nowadays is greater than it has ever been. And the competition is greater than it's ever been. And generally, to advance up the ranks in the enlisted ranks, as you get more and more senior, they're going to expect you to have a college degree. So in general, and everything is in general,
Sure.
officers go to school for 4 years and then become an officer, either through ROTC or through the academy or through the officer candidate program, where you go to college and then you sort of join the military. Generally, enlisted start with the Navy or the Air Force or the Army at age 18 after high school and then pick up college somewhere along the way. But as you know, there's exceptions to every rule.
Now, if they go to college, do they basically sign up because they're getting an education at the college level at no cost? Are they signing up for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years of the military? Is that what is signed up when they go to college?
Well, if you're talking about going to the academy, there's a 5-year obligation.
Okay.
A basic obligation. If you go into certain warfare specialties, for instance, if the Navy sends you to flight school to become a pilot, then you incur a longer obligation. Mm-hmm. If you graduate from the Naval Academy and they send you to grad school immediately, then you incur a longer obligation. But the basic obligation is 5 years. If you go to ROTC, the basic obligation is 5 years also, but it's some combination of active duty and reserve time. Oh. So my son Jack went ROTC at Boston University, and he did 4 years of active duty, and now he's at law school and he is a reservist completing his 5th year. So there's an obligation for both ROTC and for the academies.
Great.
Which is actually a pretty easy way to pay back the cost of the college education, because depending on the school that they send you to, the education might be worth from $100,000 to $500,000.
Yeah, and so do you see a ratio in men to women as well?
The president and Congress have increasingly opened up military roles to women. Not all roles are available to women, but many, many are. For instance, in the Navy, we've had women on ships for 20 years, and now we have women on submarines. We have women pilots. So speaking for the Naval Academy, in the entering class last year, about 1 out of 4 midshipmen were women, so about 25%. I think the other academies are pretty close to that.
Yeah, that's great. That means a lot to a lot of the parents out there, that they have different avenues for their kids.
Absolutely.
So now we're coming to the end of our show. So what I usually ask my guests is, what do you want to leave the parents that are out there for their sons and daughters? What advice do you want to give them on what they should do to get their kids to go to college and maybe an avenue is the military?
I would go back to where we started. Number one, start early. Number two, for the academies or ROTC or really any military, they're looking for academics, they're looking for physical capability, and they're looking for extracurricular leadership. So focus on those big three, and you can start that as a freshman. It's far better to be in the Spanish club for 4 years and be president of the Spanish club by the time you're a senior than to be willy-nilly in 16 different extracurricular activities and never really stick with it. In other words, don't collect things for the resume, actually have a real role. And then the last point would be, thank goodness for websites, because there's lots of rules out there, but they're all on the web. And you have a set of rules for ROTC, you have a set of rules for the academies, you have a set of rules for nominations. Every congressman and senator in the country has their rules on their website. And so if parents sit down with their son or daughter early and talk about whether or not the academy might be a good fit for them or whether ROTC might be a good fit for them, and you start in sophomore year or junior year, then you'll be okay. And then if anybody has any questions that I can help with, get a hold of me at Blue Star Network. And I have friends all the time that are saying, hey, Rob, you're an admiral. You know, you've been to the academy. You have sons in ROTC. Can you help me out? And I basically have an email of 14 things that you need to do as a parent. I'm happy to send you those 14 things, or if anybody emails me, I'll be happy to send it to them too.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming to my show. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me.
All right. And you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.